Hello, welcome to Geeked Up Board Games. My name's Carl and today I'm going to be teaching you to play the award-winning board game Ishtar, Gardens of Babylon. Designed by award-winning game creator Bruno Cathala, Ishtar will see you take on the role of a gardener tasked with recreating the hanging gardens of Babylon. You'll do this by picking up flower gardens and placing them in the Babylonian desert. Place them wisely enough, you'll be able to collect precious gems which will be able to buy you many victory points. At the end of the game, the player with the most victory points will be declared the greatest gardener in all of Babylon. So the first thing you want to do as you start playing the game is to lay out your hexagonal terrain boards in an interconnected way. Now it doesn't matter exactly how you fit them together, as long as they all fit together to create one whole board. It looks something like this. Now at this stage you want to determine how many players are going to be in the game. For me, I like to play with my wife, so we play a two-player game. So you take the number of boards that matches the number of players, you then add two others, the rest can be discarded. You then want to take these water fountains. Now the water fountains, there are 6, obviously we have 4 boards here, so you would take 4 of the water fountains. You can choose them at random, but I like to sort of mix them up because each one has a different value assigned to it. So the purple ones, which are the most frequent, have the lowest points value. So I like to have 2 of those. The red ones are a little more frequent, although in this game there's only 1. So that gets a few more points than the purple. And since there's only 1 white fountain, that will get you the most points if you can control it. We'll get into how you do that in a bit. But from there, you want to take your carpet tile. This is your carpet tile. And you want to place these seed tokens on the carpet tile. Now on your carpet tile with the seed tokens, you want to place your flower beds. Your flower beds will be found on these tokens here. You'll notice they're in 3 different shapes. The 6 seeds will each have one of those shapes on them. So you want to place them face down evenly on the 6 seeds. Now at this stage, it'll be good to admit that this number of carpet tiles is good if you have the maximum number of players. But if you have less players, you want to take some of them away. So if you're playing with 3 players, take 1 tile off the top of each of these. If you're playing with 2 players, take 2 off the top. And now you simply turn the top tile over on each of these tiles. You then give each player their own score sheet, making sure that at least one of the players has the player 1 score sheet. We'll move this over here because on the side of the board you want to shuffle in your tree cards. So you put them there and you will take the top 5 cards and display them. You also want to place a tree token on top of each of those cards and then put the rest to one side for use later. At this stage, you want to make sure that each player has a couple of helpers in the colour that matches their card. You'll then take the rest of their helpers and put them into the carpet tile in the centre. You take these green things here and place them in the centre. And now we want to lay out our gems. 3 varieties of gems, each matching the corresponding colour on the board. Finally, you give each player 1 purple gem as a starting token. You're now ready to start. The hardest part of the game is over, that's laying out the board. But how do you actually play Ishtar? Well, it's incredibly simple from here. Players will take turns, and on their turns they will perform a series of actions. So first of all, they will select a vegetation tile. They will then place the vegetation tile in the desert. They will collect any gems that they cover with the vegetation tile. They will then look to see if there's any special actions they can take on the tile they've placed. And finally, they will decide whether or not they can afford to buy a tree. So that's the basics. What about the details? Well, for your first action, choose a vegetation tile. It's all factored in based on this watering can. So player 1 goes first. They choose any vegetation tile that they want to use. After that, a player's turn will move the watering can clockwise. They then take the vegetation tile it lands on. If they want, they can trade in one of their gems to move the watering can to the next one along, and they can move it as many times as they want as long as they have enough gems to move it. But after that, they pick up the vegetation tile that they've landed on. Right, I'm going to skip an action here and come back to the place of vegetation tile action in a second. The reason being, there are a number of rules involved in placing the vegetation tile, but to understand those rules, you first need to understand the other actions that you can take. So the collect gems action is very easy. Wherever you choose to place your vegetation pile, if you cover one of the gems, you take that gem and put it in your own personal supply. The special actions move is where things get interesting. So when you place your vegetation tile, you may notice a symbol on some of them. This one has the symbol of the assistant. So when you place that vegetation tile, you can choose to place one of your assistants on the flower bed located there. So a second ability that you have is then on this star here. When you see that star, simply place the tile as normal, collect your gems, and then that action allows you to choose if you want to upgrade one of your skills. Now your skills are found on the player board here. Thankfully, the instructions do come with a very helpful sheet that lays out what each skill is and what abilities they give you. But a general rule, you must always buy a level 1 skill before you can buy the corresponding level 2 skill. Now the level 2 skills are where the victory points will be earned, so you want to try to get to them. But after you've bought a level 1 skill, the next time you buy a skill, you can either buy another level 1 skill or buy the corresponding level 2 skill. Simply place the 2 gems from your supply onto the board like that, and that skill is now yours. The final special action that you have is the question mark there. So when you place a tile with a question mark on it, basically it acts as a wild card. You can choose whether to place one of your helpers or buy one of your skills. And it's important to know that you don't need to use the special actions if you don't want to. Sometimes it may be tactfully better to ignore the special action on the tile. That's up to you, but once you've passed your go, you cannot use that action on that tile. The final action you'll be able to take on your turn is to try and buy one of the trees. Now you have 5 of the tree cards face up. You have to choose one of those. You'll notice each tree card has a corresponding cost associated with it. So this one would cost 2 purple gems and a white gem. If you had that in your supply, you could choose to buy this tree. Simply place the card next to your player card and then place the tree on any available green grass tile. The trees themselves will give you victory points based on the card that you receive, and they can also be used to block the progress of opponents' gardens if you manage to place them tactfully. You then take another card and replace the tree on top. Okay, so now we understand those actions, we can finally get to the place of vegetation tile action. The reason being there are strict rules about where vegetation tiles can be placed. So to start with, the vegetation tiles must be connected to a source of water. That's either placing them directly next to one of the fountains or next to other vegetation tiles that are connected to the fountains. But you have to observe a number of other rules. So a vegetation tile can never cover over a sacred stone. Can't do that. You also need to make sure that there is never a situation develops where 2 helpers are in control of a single garden. So the garden is any connected series of flower tiles. In this case, the orange helper has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tiles. The pink helper has 1. But if you were to place a tile there, that would complete a connection to the garden and make one whole garden with 2 helpers. You can't have that. You also would never want to have a situation where you connected 2 water fountains. So you couldn't place a tile there because that would make one whole garden that was connected to both fountains. So the game continues in that manner until you reach a situation where 2 of your seed icons are now empty. At that stage, you enter the end game. You continue gameplay until you reach the final player. Once you reach the final player, the game finishes and you add up all of the points. So to calculate the score, players will have a score sheet that allows them to do this systematically. To start with, they will calculate the points from any trees that they have purchased. After that, they will move down to the points gained from any gardens that they are in control of. They will also calculate any points from fountains that they are in control of. And then they will add up the points of any special actions that they've taken. So let's have a look at that in a little more detail. Victory points from your trees is quite simply the number of points on the card. To calculate the points of any gardens you control, you look for helpers that you've placed in gardens. You then add up the number of flowers in the gardens that helper is connected to. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The orange helper here is bringing the player 10 points. The pink helper is just bringing in 1 point. So to calculate the points from the fountains, you simply look at which player is in control of the largest garden attached to that fountain. So in this situation, orange has a garden that is 6 tiles long. Pink has a garden with only 1 tile on it. Therefore, orange has the largest garden and gets the points. The points are based on the availability of those fountains. So purple, which is the most frequent fountain, gets you 4 points. Orange, which has the next availability, gets you 6 points. And white, since there's only 1 white fountain, is worth 8 points. So thankfully, the instructions include this sheet here, which helps you to calculate the points from your skills. So simply look at any skills you've acquired, see if they give you any instant points, and then any points based on conditions on the board based on that skill. I won't spoil the surprises here. I'll let you read it for yourself when you play. But once you've calculated your points from your skill sheet, you simply add up all your points total. And obviously the player with the highest points is the winner.